Hi, welcome back. Now we're going to look at the biopsychosocial effects on my interviewee. This is the intersection of individuals with their institutions and their society. This, Slater says, is the development of identity. So we're going to look at his biological makeup. He is a very healthy person. He doesn't have any health concerns, no disabilities. He did have a clogged artery that got fixed, but that was due to his eating of his love for steak, basically. Psychologically, my interviewee is amazing. He is able to let stress go. Nothing really stresses him out. When there's a problem, he just wants to fix it. He doesn't dwell on it in any kind of negative way. He just wants to fix it. Now, when it's a problem with a person, it's a little more complex than fixing a television or fixing a computer, but he's working it out. He's got it. Socially, he's very well liked, and he's very charming and very outgoing. He can get along with, when my daughter was 10 years old, he related to her very well. He can relate to her. He can relate to a 100-year-old the same way. He's just very outgoing and very likable in that way. So, within the biopsychosocial comes temperament, the engagement of the three areas. Temperament, his temperament is like no other person I've ever met. And I've joined sanghas, doing Buddhist teachings, and people who practice being kind all the time. But he just naturally is not an angry person. He's never shown anger. We've never seen him angry. His wife said she's never seen him angry, never seen him resentful, never seen him in any kind of negative space. He'll get in a space where he needs to fix something if there's a problem, like I had already said, but not negatively. Always positively on how to make it better and how to improve it. Family relations were good. He was spoiled. They loved him. There was a problem. His mom and dad did separate, and so dad moved next door. But other than that, dad and mom loved him, supported him, spoiled him. He had a great relationship with his cousins, with his aunts and uncles, with his grandparents. There was trauma. Now, the grandparents did live next door to him. And so he was very close to them as well. You know, it's just a matter of stepping out his door and going in their door. But there was a trauma. His first experience of death was his grandfather had fallen down the steps, and he had been the one that found him. So that was very, very hard on him. But with the support of his family, you know, he kind of understood what was going on. As far as drug effects, I don't really know what that means. It's in the diagram. He doesn't use drugs. He doesn't drink alcohol. He did realize that his mother might have had an alcohol problem when he was in high school. He realized, and that might have contributed to how resentful and how she kind of got nasty with family members. Not so much him. She doted on him, but for everyone else in the family. So in the middle of the diagram is the overall health, and his is very good, very strong, very with every one of the different arenas. Now, his wife, not his wife, himself. He got educated at Rutgers. He went to Rutgers to college, and then eventually they asked him to teach classes there, which he did. And that's part of generativity, is passing on, learning, teaching what you know to the future generation. Okay. Now we're going to look at the biopsychosocial factors with oppression. So my interviewee is a Black man. He was raised in a middle-class Black community in New Jersey. They had very strong community values, that they expected everyone to be respectful to one another. They expected the children to go to college, which obviously he did, and there wasn't any problem with people fighting and hurting each other or anything like that. It was a very good, strong, healthy community to grow up in. And because it was all black, he, you know, fit right in and didn't realize there was a difference, or like society makes it out to be. He had very strong family values. The funny thing is, he's married to a woman. She's a tiny little white woman with blonde hair. She graduated from Yale, and she's a nurse practitioner, and she works in a very oppressed area of New Jersey, which is very poverty stricken, lots of oppression in the area, and she's very strong on equality. She's always fought for equality, believes in equal rights, and fights for it. She fought for Black Lives Matter before Black Lives Matter became a term. So I think it's really ironic that there she is all about that, and it doesn't even affect him. He's aware that it exists, of course, but it's never affected him personally. So that's just an interesting part of his life. So Wang, Zachrin, and Bates. We are moving on to the multi-systems. Wang, Zachrin, and Bates did research, and they found that everything they looked at regarding the operating off of generativity, which included, what you do for the next generation, being part of a symbolic immortality, maintaining the world. What didn't have an effect was your environment. Even your family environment had very little effect on whether you would operate off of generativity or not. So some of his resolutions through the multi-systems is being involved in the kiting and the music industry, and passing on and being part of something bigger than himself. And also during the 60s, his environment was, there were two sides to the environment in the 60s. So there was the hippie movement, which is what he related to. He even talks about living with the hippies. Now, whether he was a hippie or not, I would assume so, because he lived with the hippies and birds of a feather, but I never really saw pictures of him looking like a hippie. But he really related more to that movement and not the race riots. He wasn't a part of that. He was aware it was going on, but wasn't involved in it, wasn't affected by it, never was attacked or anything. So that's what helps him operate off of generativity. So now I want to compare my interviewee to another. I want to compare him to Freud. I want to specifically the Oedipus complex. I think it has pretty interesting effects in his life. So the Oedipus complex for a man is when a man falls in love with his mother, in a romantic way, and wants to be with his mother in that way. But the father's there, and the jealousy of the father has an effect that he's jealous of the father, but doesn't want the father to know that he's in love with the mother in that way, in a romantic way, because for fear of castration. But the one thing significant about this complex is that the male wants the father to be gone. And in his situation, the mom and dad did split up and did separate, and the father did move back in with his parents, which would be my interviewee's grandparents, who actually lived next door. So he wasn't that far away, but he did separate with the mother, and my interviewee did get the mother to himself, which he often says he always got what he wanted. Not for this, though. This wasn't even on his, because Freud's all about the subconscious, so, this isn't even something that came up. But then the dad did move in with a woman down the street, which would basically be his stepmother. And the stepmother was really nasty to the interviewee, and not just the interviewee, but other people in the dad's family, including his cousins, his aunts and uncles, his grandparents. The stepmother was just nasty to him. And with his own mother, she was very resentful. Since the father left, she was resentful towards the family as well. So he had these two mother figures being resentful, and then the one being very nasty. And it just seemed like it spilled over to his relationships, because he didn't have many relationships. He wasn't really invested in them. I know he dated a woman that I knew who had the reputation of being nasty, and I was surprised that he dated her until I did this interview, and applying it to the Freud Oedipus complex, I can understand why he dated her now. It only lasted a month. It ended very poorly. She was very nasty at the end. And I think Freud would recommend psychoanalysis on that to resolve issues of the mother. So the limitations of Freud is that Slater says that his personality believes it's developed in childhood, that it can't change outside of that. And we all know personality can change throughout your life. As you mature and get older, there's little room for outside influence and growth. And it's really based off the unconscious mind, so it can't be supported through research. Roger says it can be far-fetched and not applicable to a person's therapy. So that's the end. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a very interesting project, and I'm really glad to have been a part of it. I'm happy to have interviewed my interviewee, because he's amazing how he's just so operates off the generativity side, and is such a positive person, and it's all natural. It's not fake in any way, shape, or form. So thank you for listening.